Hey, welcome to the Iron Tequila Podcast. We're your hosts, Tequila Poppy and Jordan Martis, and we're glad you joined us today. Today, we're going to be tackling a topic that men desperately need, and that topic is accountability. The reason this matters is accountability is the foundation of trust, growth, and masculinity.
If accountability doesn't exist, there is no trust. There is no personal accountability.
You can't achieve the standards that you set for yourself.
Yeah, standards are almost non-existent because there's no real way to move into chosen goals. There's nothing there. You know, taking ownership of your actions, decisions, and outcomes takes a decision to begin with. And, you know, let's go ahead and get into the definition to start here. The definition of accountability in the traditional fashion is having something that you are going to obligate yourself to somebody else. So in that regard, we don't shift blame. Blame is regarded as the negative side of accountability. It doesn't always have to be blame. In fact, accountability at the end of the day truly creates freedom. And the reason it is that there is more trust available. There is more opportunity with others. There is more opportunity as a referral basis when people trust you and they know that you will be accountable for your own actions and really, number one, your word. If you say you're going to do something, that accountability is all that we have in this world.
Yeah, it's really about taking responsibility for your actions, for your decisions, and for your indecisions as well. And you know, that covers every facet of your life, from personal relationships to friendships to family members, and extends into your workplace as well.
Yeah, it covers everything in life.
Yeah, you don't want to be the guy who becomes known as the one that doesn't accept responsibility and is not accountable to himself. And ultimately the team can't count on him.
Exactly. So opportunities go away there. Leading a group of guys with the logistics job that I've had for quite a while, we had a group of about 25 guys together, and it was real easy and quickly identifiable who chose accountability and who didn't. You know, bathroom breaks became 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Smoke breaks became 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It was very easy to see who was disciplined and was not.
Yeah, pretty easy to identify the weak link in the team there.
Yep, exactly. Well, let's go ahead and get into some of the reasons why men actually struggle with accountability.
Yeah. You know, I like to say that accountability equals freedom. You know, if you hold yourself accountable, you have high standards, you're much more likely to be successful in all aspects of your life. And you know, some of the challenges that men have with personal accountability is that oftentimes their ego will get in the way, and it makes it hard for them to admit that they made a mistake.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially with people who are meaningful to us, fathers in particular. You know, being boys growing up with a role model who we idolize, it's extremely difficult to break the trust that you are desperately seeking, that we desperately seek.
You know, it takes so long to develop trust, to earn trust, because they say trust is earned, it's not given.
Right.
And because it takes so much effort to earn trust from others, it's very fragile. It's very easy to break that trust. And one of the easiest ways to break trust is to not hold yourself accountable.
Yep. It takes time. I mean, sometimes it's years and years and years before trust is extended from an individual. But, you know, as in the case in relationships and infidelity that, you know, so many have experienced, that can be broken in an instant. You know, that's touched many lives.
And it's hard to get back. Once it's broken, it's hard, if not impossible, to get back, especially in intimate relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some other reasons that men struggle?
Well, I think fear of judgment is one of the other ways that men struggle with having accountability. We'd rather hide our failures oftentimes than face them. You know, if you face your troubles publicly, it's a little emasculating. It can feel emasculating
for sure.
It can feel you have a sense of disappointment and disappointing others. So a lot of people will tend to mask that or to hide it.
Yeah, we always want to be presented as the best we can, especially on these ridiculous little things we carry around in our pockets, so we have connectivity to everybody in the world any given point in time. We want to be always on, right? And it's just not the way we are as human beings. That's not reality.
Well, and some of the other ways that men struggle with accountability is that we live in a comfort culture right now. Everything's easy. It's very easy to make excuses.
Yep.
The guy at work, right? He's always making excuses.
Yep.
The reason I didn't get it done, it wasn't my fault. It was because so and so didn't tell me or didn't do it.
Yep.
And so we currently live in an environment that has made it very easy.
Yeah.
And for some reason, very acceptable to have a ton of excuses.
Right. That's one of the pieces that really baffles me is how did we get to a point where it's acceptable that a young man can, not hold his word? What in society makes that okay?
Yeah.
Who is holding them accountable? What accountability do they have? Is it chosen or not? Jordan Peterson likes to talk about picking up a cross of your choice, because we're going to bear a cross of some sort in our lives.
Or many.
Yeah, absolutely. Many throughout time. Early on, though, in life, if we don't choose, we're going to be at the beck and call of somebody else, usually in regards to money. And so our time is getting eaten up immediately. Right?
Yeah, and one of the other things that you just brought up is a lack of positive role models. If you think back of how did it become acceptable in society to accept mediocrity and lack of accountability, a lack of responsibility and ownership, and it oftentimes goes back to childhood. If a child's not held accountable by their parents, then they develop into adults who have never been held to account, and therefore they lack accountability in their adulthood. The problem with that is, as adults, the consequences can be a lot more severe for not holding yourself accountable.
Parents have a massive role in the world, and so I believe it's probably harder than ever to have children be held accountable with all of the pull of attention that there is everywhere, social media included.
Yeah, so let's talk about what personal accountability looks like, because personal accountability, what we're talking about here specifically, we're drilling down a little bit on accountability in general terms, but personal accountability, what does that mean to you, Jordan?
Really, it's a choice, and we can choose to not take responsibility for something. It doesn't matter what circumstances we're in. Every individual has the opportunity to not be responsible. On the other end of the spectrum is the realization that we do have that choice, and that choice is there at every single moment. So if we make the choice to not take responsibility, if we don't understand that that's a choice through self-empowerment of that understanding that nobody else is going to come to save you, like we've been talking about, and we will talk about in the future. By the way, we'll have upcoming 5 truths that men need to hear now. You're going to want to stay with us for that in the next coming weeks. We'll talk a little more about that later, a little preview of that coming up. One of the things we can do for the personal end of accountability is the mirror test, because the only person who really knows if you've done the right thing is the individual. So looking in the mirror, can you go to sleep at night? Can you look yourself in the eye and say, I did my best? I put everything I have out there. I've been accountable. My word is my bond, and if I break it, what do I do about it?
Well, it's like the old saying, if you're always doing the right thing, then you're going to get the right outcome.
Right.
And
that's difficult, man.
Well, it is difficult because oftentimes those are the hardest things to do. But I think most people have a well-developed sense of right and wrong. But where the challenge comes is with the personal accountability part of that, and the lens with which you view the right and wrong.
Right.
And holding yourself, if you have high standards and you hold yourself accountable to the right things, that's often the more difficult path to pursue.
It really is. Through the process, though, different challenges come up, and to grow through that is going to require awareness, and particularly awareness of our self-talk, right? The excuses we make internally to say that it's okay that I don't hold my word, that I don't turn my homework in on time, or that I didn't go to bed last night at the time I told my mom I was going to go to bed. I stayed up for 2 hours after that because I wanted to play games on the phone, right? Most of us have experienced things like this, and when it comes down to it, it's immaturity. It's a choice to act like a child, which there's nothing wrong there other than the context of being inappropriate. Do we want the responsibility of a child? Great, act like one. If you want the responsibility of an adult,
act like that.
Act like an adult.
Yeah.
And it's you can see children. It's very easy to see how disciplined children are according to their parents' personal accountability and what their own standards are.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of challenging sometimes because maybe that's me.
I can remember being a father, and I raised 3 adult sons. They're adult sons now, great men. But I recall a situation when they were younger. Something had happened within the household, and call them all together and say, okay, who did this? And it was not me. Yep. And it's like, okay, well, somebody did it, right? And it was one of the 3 of you.
Right.
It's time to step up and accept responsibility, and the skill set, your ability to develop that skill set starts in these little incidences when you're a child.
Yep, absolutely. And then those become cumulative over time as well. So if a direction is allowed of non-responsibility with the child, it compounds. That's the law of positive feedback. Not positive versus negative feedback, but positive feedback as in whatever direction the brain is going, it's going to maintain that direction unless it's acted upon from an outside force, inertia, if you will.
Yeah.
Right?
And you think about, it's really your responsibility also as a father, as a leader in business, as a leader in your relationships, and it's your responsibility to hold others accountable as well, because we all know those people who have never been held accountable their entire life. Yep. People just pacify them and allow them to continue on being not accountable, and all that does is reinforce the idea that it's okay to not be accountable, not hold myself accountable because nobody else is holding me accountable.
Right. So where does that start? The personal accountability aspect of who makes the choice. If a child is never educated as to them having a choice, they're never going to be able to make that choice.
Yeah, I think it starts with developing good habits early in life.
Yep.
If you already missed that opportunity, if you're old, if you're a little bit older in your 20s or 30s, and we're already past the opportunity to develop those habits at the easy stage, right? But that doesn't mean that those skills can't be developed. But at a certain stage in life, it's no longer your parents' responsibility to start instilling good habits, eating right, waking up early, exercising, and doing your homework, turning things in on time, showing up on time, being true to your word. If your parents didn't instill those in your life early on, at some point, it becomes your personal responsibility to make those changes to become a better version, a better adult.
Some people that starts as early as 8 or 10, taking on that responsibility because they had examples or their familial upbringing allowed them to see that it was acceptable or unacceptable to not be accountable, right? There's no reason that can't be adopted as an adult. The challenge is that these habits have already been established for sometimes 30 to 40 years.
Well, yeah, and we've talked about this on other episodes. The power of repetition, and repetition can both be a positive or a negative. So if you're constantly reinforcing,
Right.
if you're constantly reinforcing and repeating negative actions, negative characteristics and traits, those will become stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once they're, it's like a muscle. You're going to the gym to build your biceps.
Yep.
Once they become so strong, it's very difficult cycle to break.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the momentum, the big mo,
Yeah.
right? The thing that has made a difference for me that I heard from Grant Cardone, he had a specific line, if it's worth doing every day.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and another one that comes to mind too is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And what that means to me is if you always tell the truth, you're going to be known as someone who is reliable and trustworthy.
Yep.
If you deviate from that and you don't hold yourself, accountable to those principles and values, and then eventually everybody's going to see through your bullshit.
Yep, exactly. That's actually a good lead into the relationship aspect of accountability. I mean, we've been kind of talking about a whole bunch of these things thus far, but let's go ahead and get into how relationships can be either promoted, deepened, or ruined through accountability.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I mentioned earlier we have relationships with people in various stages of life. Everywhere from your family and your children. Your relationship with your children is different than your relationship with your parents, for example.
Absolutely.
Your work relationships are different than your friendships. Your friendships are different than your significant other relationships. So
Hopefully.
in this capacity, we're going to kind of talk about how your accountability affects your personal, intimate relationships, because nothing kills a relationship faster than a lack of accountability with one or both of the partners in a relationship.
A lot of that goes back to our upbringing. If it's acceptable to be let off the hook, why would somebody want to find somebody in their personal relationship who holds them accountable, right? That might not be a character trait that they're looking for, which could be, a bigger challenge unto itself. So, we like people who are like us, and eventually, if we don't develop, we'll start to reinforce that with our significant relationships, and looking in those characteristics in others that aren't healthy in us. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge too, and again, nothing kills a relationship faster than two partners who lack accountability, and what that looks like is, not being honest with your partner, not respecting their boundaries, not showing up on time, not doing the things that you said you would do. Hey, honey, I'll stop and get milk on the way home from work, and then you constantly show up without the milk. And your wife eventually says, she realizes, oh, this is the guy that's not going to do what he says he's going to do.
Yep.
And that's a pretty minor inconvenience in life. But if you think about that on a larger scale, if your spouse says, I'll pay the mortgage, and then neglects to do that, and then adding fuel to the fire, making it worse, they say, well, it wasn't my fault. I just simply forgot. No apology, no change behavior, no personal accountability. They just blame shift, gaslight you, make all kinds of excuses. Well, that's pretty detrimental to a relationship when you're in a relationship with someone that you cannot trust, because they're not accountable to themselves. How can they be accountable to you if they are not accountable to themselves?
Yeah. Going back to the personal accountability aspect, that also on each side starts with our self-talk and how our habits of what we say internally, the dialogue that goes on, maybe the monologue, depending on how many people you have in your head, with how I regard this other person is going to be founded on how I regard myself. So how I talk to other people will mirror a lot of the self-talk that I have for myself. Is that positive? Is that negative? Is the other person accepting of me not being accountable for my words? I say hurtful things, and then things are we have a challenge, and I'm being requested to not say hurtful things. What does that look like in the future? Does it change? Right?
Does the behavior change?
Really, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. Is the proof there? Is the pudding actually made at the end of the day? And if it's not, it's pretty easy to tell.
Yeah, and apologies are hollow without change behavior, and change behavior is the definition of holding yourself accountable. And one of the other principles or concepts that we talk a lot about on our podcast is the idea of self-reflection, because a lot of people are not accountable, that are untrustworthy. They may not even be aware that that's how they're perceived, right? Because they've never been held accountable. So it's an individual responsibility to conduct a self-assessment, a self-awareness test to understand, how am I perceived by others? Am I trustworthy? Does my partner perceive me as being trustworthy and reliable?
Right.
And if not, well, you've got some work to do.
Actually, owning that starting point is one of the most powerful and empowering things that we can do as men, is being brutally honest with where we are today. And it'll hurt. At the same time, there's no way to change anything that we don't own. The foundation of life is making choices on a daily basis that are acted out. And if we don't take responsibility for that and start to build accountability in one way, shape, or form, it's just never going to happen.
Well, your relationship's doomed, frankly.
Exactly. Yes. And that's going to be across the board with all relationships, not just a significant other, right?
Well, let's talk about how that looks, how being personally accountable looks in the workforce.
Yeah.
Because you've been a leader. You are a leader in your current profession. I've been leaders in various stages of my professional career, as well as in the military. And so, how does that look? How does that maybe differ from a personal accountability in an intimate relationship?
Yeah, good question. The work end of it is more about everybody being on the same page and understanding the goal and whose role is what. And the leader's job there, the accountability position is having everything in line. Because it's blatantly obvious when somebody who is running a small project even doesn't have things prepared for the team that's there, or sitting on their thumbs. That's a big giant no-no in any leadership position. Doesn't matter what's going on, and it's going to be unavoidable at times, obviously. At the same time, having the team all on the same page is pretty simple when the preparation is taken care of. So the accountability there is, at the time of, do we have things to do? Or do we know what we're doing? Are we all on the same page? Do we all have the scope of the project in front of us? Are we all showing up on time at work? I mean, that one is about as simple as it gets. And I've been in charge of these hiring projects for a lot of years, and there's only about 3 things that I ask of my guys when I hire them. Can you show up on time? And it's pretty obvious to me when I'm on the phone with somebody. Can you show up on time? Is there a confident answer or no? Can you work hard? Can you communicate? That's about it. Beyond that, personal accountability is an action.
Is key. Yeah, one of the other components of leadership in the workforce that I like to implement too is the idea of disseminating information. Right. All team members need to understand what the mission is, what the goals are, and what the timelines are.
Yeah, exactly.
And so those are critical for success in a professional environment, in a work environment. It also boils down to integrity and again, it's understanding the common goal and everybody working together to achieve the desired outcome.
That's very similar to the intimate relationships. With the team and business work relationships, it's going to involve a lot more people, and it's not quite as personal. It's one of the biggest differences. But man, it's real easy to take things personally at work.
Well, it is, especially if you've got several team members who are the weak links on the team, and you're the leader, and it's ultimately your responsibility to
get it all done,
to drive the mission and to accomplish all the tasks. And so holding others accountable is a critical component of leadership, not only in a intimate relationship, but in a work environment. Because if you're the leader and you're responsible for the outcome, and you don't get buy-in with your subordinates, then you're failing as a leader. And at that point, you've got to take some personal accountability and reevaluate, reassess how to convey the messages that are necessary and to motivate your team to get them to accomplish the goals.
There's a whole nother episode unto itself right there with motivation of teams, within the structure of accountability. At the bottom line, if you don't have buy-in, like you said, there's just no way that there's going to be any camaraderie at all, So it really starts internally with the leader, with the individual, which goes back to the personal and the responsibility. It's the foundation of everything in life.
Yeah. Good leaders, they own the responsibility, they own the outcome, and they hold themselves personally accountable. And you don't see a lot of great leaders in the professional world who are not effective at being personally accountable.
Exactly.
This is a good time for a break, so we're going to take a couple minutes, and we hope you join us for the second half of this episode on accountability. We've got some final thoughts. We've got some great action steps to take. So join us on the second half in 2 minutes.
Be back in just a minute.
Welcome to the Iron Tequila Podcast. We're your hosts, Tequila Poppy and Jordan Martis. We're starting our new series on the 5 truths that men need to hear now.
Number 1, nobody's coming to save you, and we all know that's the truth. Number 2, you're not weak for struggling, you're weak for hiding it, which seems like a bit of an oxymoron, but we'll explore more. Number 3, confidence is not a feeling, it's a skill that can be developed. We'll show you how.
The 4th episode, we'll dive into what's killing men's edge. And then we'll wrap up the series with our 5th and final episode on developing a game plan to move forward.
We're going to dive deep into each of these subjects. You'll want to stay with us for this on the Iron Tequila Podcast. Join us. Hi, and welcome back to the Iron Tequila Podcast. Today, we are going through a very pertinent topic to all men, accountability. And this is something that if you increase your effectiveness and your accountability, everything in your life is going to improve. Let's go ahead and get into some of the practical tools that we can use to increase our ability to be accountable.
Yeah, so we've already talked about some of the different areas of your life where you're accountable. And you should be accountable to yourself in all aspects of your life. But the accountability will tend to look a little bit different depending on your relationship, right? So we talked about, your relationship with your kids a little different than with your parents, and your interpersonal relationships with friends are different than those with your wife or your spouse. And your work relationships are a little bit different. But when we're talking in terms of what that looks like for your personal accountability. Things like, hey, I want to get in better shape, so I got to start going to the gym. I want to start eating better, healthier, and establish a healthier lifestyle. And so, you've got to obviously, if you have those goals, you've got to make some drastic changes. You may have to make some drastic changes to how you're currently living your life, and implement a plan to make those changes. And so the first step really is to identify what your goals are. Let's say it's fitness. Hey, I want to be in better shape. Okay, well, I know I'm gonna have to get more active. I know I'm gonna have to start eating better and making some healthier choices. So you've got to be able to make a plan that leads you to that goal.
Sure.
And then the accountability piece is, hey, nobody's going to get up in the morning and do those push-ups for you, right?
Yep.
And since we already know that consistency is key, consistency and repetition are keys to success, you have to, if you want to make drastic changes like that, you've got to be consistent. And you have to repeat those actions often. And again, nobody's coming to save you. You've got to be accountable to yourself, because your kids aren't gonna do the push-ups for you. Your spouse isn't gonna spoon feed you healthier food.
Yeah, right.
And so it's about making a plan and then holding yourself accountable to taking the steps necessary to reach your goals.
Okay. What are the tangible, some of the actual hands-on pieces that we can use on a regular basis to increase our own accountability?
Well, I'm still thinking about getting in shape. For example, there's a lot of tools. We live in the information super age these days. There's access to everything from apps. You can use apps on your phone for tracking progress, tracking your daily habits. You can journal. I know a lot of people journal and they write down, kind of promises to themselves as a way to hold themselves accountable.
Jim Rohn is a big proponent of journaling.
Yeah,
him
he
and
is.
Brian Tracy, self-development guys.
Yeah. So those are some of the things. If you're not doing things like that, that may be a good place to start, because what you really have to do is, especially if you're making dramatic changes in your life, like we're talking about,
It'd be very challenging.
these are very difficult to break old habits, bad habits, and reestablish new habits. Once the new habits and the healthy habits are established, they're a lot easier. They become part of your routine, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to rely on other methods for tracking and holding yourself accountable. But until you get to that point, it's very important to employ tools that will help you hold yourself accountable.
Brendan Burchard's daily tracker comes to mind. His one sheet. There's tons of them out there. Stephen Covey had one, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
Right. He had a journal that he had out for a long time. I've made my own in the past. I've had them as simple as Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Just timelines broken out for every 15 minutes. If there's no tracking, there's no way that accountability is even possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not doing it yourself, right, the personal accountability piece, nobody else is going to do it for you.
Right. Well, there's the leadership part. If we don't lead ourselves, who's going to follow?
Yeah. And then, one of the other life examples I think are very relevant is the financial aspects of our lives. This is another key area in your life where holding yourself accountable, tracking progress. You think about developing a budget and sticking to it as a way to track progress and to help reinforce and create new good habits in your financial life.
Well, if you don't know where you are, there's nowhere to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. It's a little bit like, hey, I want to take a trip across the country.
Yep.
And you say, well, where do you want to go? I don't know. How are you going to get there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just going to jump in the car and start driving.
Yeah.
That's why a plan is so important.
Yep.
Because very few people would just jump in the car and start driving across the country with no idea of where they're going, how they're going to get there, when they're going to get there, what it's going to cost. Obstacles, planning for obstacles they might encounter. So the planning part of it is critical component of and a no better indicator of success when tracking, holding yourself accountable and tracking progress.
Yeah. Accountability partners can work. Mentioning fitness, having a buddy to go work out with makes a huge difference.
Personal trainer.
Yep, personal trainers work, and that's an obligation both financially and time-wise of resources. The other part that I've seen that I've done my best, and I'm not ideal at yet, is noticing my own concerns and voicing them to those that it affects before they can see it or voice it to me. That's a tough one, because essentially I'm calling myself out before somebody else has the opportunity to do so. In a work circumstance, there are going to be mistakes. I run a team that we take care of relocations of people and things at a Fortune 500 company here in Boise. And so in that regard, we're going to make mistakes. These are fast-paced events that we're setting up for and tearing down from. And they're high demand sometimes.
And a lot of working pieces,
a lot of
working
pieces,
parts.
tight timelines, that type of thing. And we're going to make mistakes. We miss things. How we handle the mistake is infinitely more important than making the mistake, which is a key component to accountability in the aftermath of what has happened, right? Because if I don't take responsibility for that, somebody's going to see that I'm trying not to. They might misinterpret that.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and I think that's a very poignant point, because let's face it, we're all going to make mistakes in life. We make mistakes in all facets of our lives. How you handle those mistakes is the true test of character, and that's what we're talking about today. Is that personal accountability piece of, hey, how do you handle it when you make a mistake? Do you say, hey, I did that. That was my fault. I created a problem that now affects other people.
Right.
What a person who's effective at accountability says, it was my fault. Here's what I'm going to do to make it right. Here's my plan for fixing it.
Mm-hmm. That plan, if it's not formulated and presented to the people who are involved, probably won't have an opportunity to be executed.
Yeah.
In a relationship, coming to somebody after a mistake has been made without some sort of rectification and a plan, right? Hey, this is if this happens in the future, this is what I have prepared for next time.
Yeah.
Because if it's happened once, it's probably going to happen again.
Yeah, I like to explain it this way. I like to say, lots of people are good at identifying problems.
Yep.
We can all see problems. Far fewer people are effective at creating solutions. Yep. So if an accountable person, a person who's very effective at personal accountability, will both be able to identify problems and provide solutions. Mm-hmm. Let's shift off of that a little bit, Jordan, and kind of talk about what are the costs in everyday life to an individual, to people who don't have personal accountability. What are some of the areas of your life that suffer because you may not be as accountable as you should be?
Right. The biggest one that comes to mind is opportunities for lack of trust. And it doesn't matter if it's in a personal sense with somebody that we're courting, a woman in life that we think we would enjoy. You promise something and that is not followed through on. Not much of a choice there. You've ruined that relationship. So it applies at work too. Some of the things that at work, as far as the cost, promotions are unavailable, right? Sometimes you even get fired. Okay. In a financial sense, if there's no accountability, the cost can be massive, right? There are fees, there are all kinds of interest.
You may not be able to make your mortgage payment next month.
Your credit is gone.
I
mean, longer term concerns as well.
Yeah.
So, the accountability piece is crucial. If it's not there, we essentially become destined for mediocrity. Because if I'm not accountable to myself, nobody else is going to require me to become accountable to them. What opportunities are available? They all go away very quickly.
Yeah, mediocrity can be just a malignant cancer in your life. If you're constantly satisfied with how things are going, then you're never prompted to grow, to be better, to perform better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It erodes self-respect. And at the foundation of everything, if I don't respect myself, because I can't hold myself accountable and hold my word to myself in one little tiny piece of life, what's going to happen? Nobody else is going to trust me to be accountable.
Yeah, and we already mentioned this earlier in this segment, but how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yep.
And to your point that you just made, if your boss at work if identifies you as someone who they can't trust, they view you as not responsible, you're not going to get the job done, and then you're going to make excuses. You're pretty much labeled as a person who does that in every aspect of your life.
Yep, you get pigeonholed.
Yeah, and so that can have a detrimental effect on your self-respect.
Yeah, there are opportunities to start over, new job, new relationships. And if that's approached with a new
mindset.
Yeah. Thank you, on accountability. Things can change drastically. I mean, overnight.
Yeah.
Right? Overnight successes take 10 years. What happened during that 10 years is more important than the overnight success. So what is that mindset shift? How does that happen?
Yeah, well, it's a personal accountability. There's got to be, oftentimes there's a catalyst or an impetus that creates that shift in a mindset for someone who has kind of floated through their life without being accountable. So oftentimes there's a dynamic that occurs, seismic dynamic, that forces the change. And what that could look like in real life is maybe a divorce, maybe you get fired from your job. And it's an opportunity to sit back, conduct that self-assessment, to strive for some personal awareness and say, well, where did I fail in this marriage, in this job? Where did I fail? And what can I do better for the next job, for the next relationship? How can I personally shift my mindset and sharpen my skills to be more personally accountable? And that starts with awareness.
Yep. That awareness can easily lead to some quick evaluation and changes, which again, don't take long, right? They don't have to take long. For most of us as human beings, we're so attached to these feelings and these outcomes, it becomes extremely challenging for this mindset to even have an opportunity to take hold. Yet, in reality, all it is needed is a simple decision, right? When we start to regard accountability and the failures around them as an opportunity to make a little tiny shift in a belief or a principle or a value, everything else can change instantly in life.
Yeah. So that dynamic, that shift can be powerful. It can empower you to force the change that is necessary for
in the
your
external
growth.
world. Yes, in action, right?
Yeah. So, what oftentimes looks like, detrimental to your life on the surface, say I got fired from my job, is actually an opportunity to grow, to get better. But you have to make the conscious choice to become a better person, to become a stronger man, and to be a better employee in our example here.
Yep. A lot of that goes back to what we put into our brains, the self-talk, which we discussed in the personal responsibility of myself to myself. If I'm only consuming stuff online that is negative, detrimental to my mindset and the way I think, it's just going to result in negative aspects being perpetuated in life. The opposite's also true. We start to eliminate that type of stuff and watch motivational stuff. Go find Eric Thomas. If you want to get some motivation, this guy is phenomenal. We'll list him in the show notes here, but Eric's stuff he's almost yelling at college kids.
Get your head out of your ass.
Not far from that. It's a really positive message, and he's willing to get intense about it. And his message is, if you don't have any accountability, then you don't really have any foundation for life.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good summary because, at the end of the day, this is an old time saying, I might butcher it here, but a man is his word, right? And what that meant, and what that has meant for all of time, is that a man doesn't run from responsibility. He owns it. He accepts responsibility for the outcome that was not what was desired, and he makes changes to improve the outcome, to improve himself, and to become a better version of himself.
Yep. Iron sharpens iron, man. There's no two ways about it. Well, what can we do? What are some of the things we can some action items, actionable steps that we can take away from today's conversation? One of the things for here right away is to identify one specific area in your life that you can make a change in right now, that you can hold your own self accountable to, right? Maybe that's a 3-day, maybe it's a 5-day or a 7-day, right? There's all kinds of challenges out there when we might have one coming up here in the future, but making one choice in one area of life will expand to other areas of life.
Yeah, we've talked about some of this on other podcast episodes, but Admiral Craven gave a commencement speech at a college, university many years ago. But one of the things he talked about was, get up early in the morning, start your day with an accomplishment. And Admiral Craven talked about it doesn't have to be a big accomplishment. He said, make your bed. If you start your day with a new habit. One of the things I like to do is start the day with 100 push-ups, okay? And if you, like you said, it could be a 3-day, a 5-day, a 7-day challenge to yourself where you can start small with small goals that are achievable. And hey, I'm going to do 100 push-ups every day this week. Maybe at first you can only knock out 10 push-ups. So you got to do 10 push-ups 10 times throughout the day. By the end of that week, you've already seen progress, and you're already at 20 push-ups 5 times a day, right, to get to 100.
Sure.
And within a short amount of time, you're doing 100 push-ups at one time.
At one go, right.
And then the challenge is, hey, how do I improve from this point? Maybe my next goal is do 500 push-ups a day.
Yeah.
And so, again, we've talked about success begets success, wins beget wins, and when you start seeing the growth and the successes, even on small goals like that, it will start breeding additional successes in your life.
The more time that can be spent in that progression of moving toward and finding small successes, the faster it will pile on, the faster it will progress.
Yeah, there's a compounding effect.
Yeah, compound. It's a snowball thing, you know. So one little tiny thing leads to the next. Keeping that momentum can be very challenging. It is worth it.
Well, and you're right. Keeping the momentum can be challenging. That's oftentimes where people, lose that consistency because life is moving fast. We're all over obligated. There's a lot of things to do in every day, so it's very easy to sacrifice the things that that aren't perceived as being urgent or absolutely necessary. So it's really easy to hit the snooze button, go back to sleep instead of getting up to do your push-ups. It's really easy to say, oh gosh, I've got to get out the door. I'm going to be late for work. So I'm just going to sacrifice. I'm not going to do the push-ups today. So that's where the personal accountability comes into play. You've got to establish new habits, new routines, positive self-talk and self-reinforcement.
Man, you're making me feel bad about the things that I'm not doing in my life.
Let's do push-ups right now.
Making me feel bad. This is not an abnormal thing. I have guilt because I have obligated myself with things that I have not fulfilled. Yeah. Right? And
we all do.
We all do.
We all do.
So, part of that, and we aren't going to get into it in today's episode, a lot of the work that I do in the coaching, men's coaching, is around forgiveness, and something that we've been talking about more and more here as well, which is most important for ourselves, right, in the areas that we fail. So we'll talk about that another time. Yeah. Accountability really is the foundation of freedom. At the end of the day, without accountability, without some sort of responsibility to somebody else that we choose, there's not much in life available.
Yeah. Accountability is not a punishment. it's an opportunity for growth.
There we go.
I can recall when my oldest son went away for the Army, right? And they were doing a lot of physical training, waking up early, exhausting days.
Yep.
And I said, you can look at it as a negative, right? Gosh, I'm tired. They're making me do all this stuff that I don't want to do. Or you can say, gosh, how lucky am I? I'm getting paid to work out every single day. And I am reaping the benefits of that. I am growing my mind, body, my mentality, my resilience, my confidence. They're all growing, and the Army's paying me to do that. So one of those little mind shift changes can make a world of difference in your progress.
And that's all it takes. That's absolutely all it takes. Thank you for joining us here today. This is a conversation we will continue. We will revisit accountability in the future. We're happy you're here. Thank you. We appreciate it. Really, with the Iron Tequila Podcast, we know that iron sharpens iron. There's nothing wrong with a little tequila in there as well. So, upcoming here, what do we have coming up?
Yeah, so we've got a new series coming up. We've got a 5-part series on the 5 truths that men need to hear now. And Jordan, some of these truths are going to be just as powerful as the segment that we just completed on accountability. And a lot of great information, great conversations on how to become a stronger man and more confident and ultimately more successful.
It might piss you off a little bit, and I'm okay with that. The things that are going to move us forward and help us develop are not necessarily things that we like. So join us. You're going to enjoy this process of development.
See you next week on the Iron and Tequila Podcast.